My name is Rose. I used to believe life had given me everything I ever dreamed of. A loving husband, a warm home, and the promise of a future filled with happiness. Michael, my husband, was the man everyone admired. Charming, responsible, and protective. The kind of man who could light up a room with just his smile. When we got married, I thought my life had turned into a fairy tale. Our wedding was small but beautiful. I still remember the way his hands trembled when he slid the ring onto my finger. He whispered softly, "You're my forever, Rose." And I believed him. The first few years were magical. We traveled together, cooked together, and sometimes stayed up all night talking about our dreams. He would bring me flowers just because, and I thought, this is what true love feels like. But love, or at least the love I believed in, has a way of changing. Slowly, almost quietly, Michael began to drift away from me. Part 2, the cracks appear. At first it was small things. He started working late nights, saying he had deadlines. His phone became his new best friend, and he would step outside to take calls. Whenever I asked, he would snap, "I'm doing this for us, Rose. Stop being paranoid." I told myself it was stress. I told myself marriages had ups and downs. But in my heart, something felt wrong. One evening, he came home smelling faintly of perfume. Not mine. Something sweeter, stronger. When I hugged him, he pulled away quickly. I wanted to ignore it. I wanted to hold on to the man who once made me feel like the center of his universe. But the signs were too many. And then, the truth came crashing in. Part 3. The Betrayal. It was an ordinary Sunday afternoon. Michael had left his laptop on the dining table, something he rarely did. He went out for a jog, and I was cleaning up when I saw the screen light up with a new message. I shouldn't have looked, but my heart told me otherwise. The email opened easily, and what I saw broke me. There she was, Ria, a younger woman, smiling in pictures with him. They had exchanged dozens of emails, love notes, promises. He called her his happiness, his reason to live, the same words he once whispered to me. My hands shook as I scrolled. The pain in my chest felt like fire. Every memory of our love replayed in my mind, now poisoned by his betrayal. That night, I confronted him. "Michael, who is Ria?" For a moment, fear flickered in his eyes, but it disappeared as quickly as it came. He smirked. "She's none of your business." My voice trembled. "I'm your wife. How is this not my business?" His reply cut me into pieces. "Not for long. I want a divorce." Just like that. Years of love, trust, and sacrifice thrown away in a single sentence. I felt my world collapse. I cried until my body ached. I wanted to scream, to ask him why. But deep down, I already knew the answer. Michael had chosen her, and he thought I would quietly let him go. Part 4. The Breaking Point. That night was the darkest of my life. I stared at the ceiling, broken, betrayed, humiliated. But somewhere between the tears and the silence, something inside me shifted. If Michael thought I was weak, if he thought I would beg or crumble, he was wrong. I wasn't going to let him walk away with my dignity. I wasn't going to let him destroy me. He wanted a divorce. Fine, but I would make sure he paid for every single tear I shed. And that's when I decided. This wasn't the end of my story. This was the beginning of my revenge. The Revenge of a Broken Rose, Part 2. The Plan and Courtroom Twist. When the first shock faded, I started to think clearly. Pain makes your vision narrow. Anger makes it sharp. Mine was a cold, steady anger. The kind that plans. I told myself two things. I would not beg, and I would not be a victim. If Michael wanted to throw everything away, he would have to face the consequences. First, I needed proof. Not rumors, not guesses. Proof. I began quietly. I learned to hide my fear behind a smile. I kept making his coffee, folding his shirts, acting like the woman who still loved him. He believed it. That made my work easier. At night, when he left his laptop open, I took notes. I printed emails. I saved screenshots of messages and photos. I recorded dates, amounts, places, every small detail that could show a pattern. I checked bank statements and found transfers labeled as business expense that clearly went elsewhere. I wrote down names, times, phone numbers. Collecting evidence felt invasive at first, but every piece I found stitched back a part of my broken trust. Each screenshot was a small victory. I also reached out to friends who knew him in different circles. People he'd met through work. The family friends who'd always trusted us. I asked quietly, needed answers. Some blinked, surprised. A few were protective, others distant. But those who believed me offered small help. A message, a memory, an old photograph. Each one became another grain in my case. Then I found a lawyer. I needed someone who could translate my quiet stack of papers into a force the court would respect. My lawyer, Mira, was sharp and calm. She listened without judging. When I showed her the files, she didn't say, "I'm sorry." She said, "We will make this right." She taught me something important. The court doesn't rule on feelings. It rules on facts. So we turned feelings into facts. Emails became evidence. Transfers became records. Secret dates became witness statements. We filed for divorce. Michael wasn't surprised. He strutted in like a man who already claimed victory. He had Rhea by his side, and a fake smile that said, "I have moved on." Courtrooms have a way of making people small. The judge's chambers felt cold but fair. When our case began, Michael's lawyer spoke first. He painted a picture of an amicable separation, of mutual consent and new beginnings. He made it sound neat. Then my lawyer stood. She didn't shout. She didn't theatrically slam papers on the table. She simply laid out the timeline. Late-night emails, secret payments, hotel bookings, messages filled with promises meant for another woman. She showed the court the screenshots I'd collected and the bank transfers I'd traced. She brought witnesses, a friend who'd seen Michael leaving a hotel late at night, an accountant who'd noticed irregular expenses, a colleague who'd heard whispered conversations. At first, Michael smirked. He thought confidence could mask truth. But when one by one the pieces came together, emails tied to payments, messages matched with dates on receipts, his smirk disappeared. He became a man watching his life unravel in slow motion. There was a moment during the hearing I'll never forget. My lawyer asked for the laptop records. The clerk opened the file. The screen revealed a conversation where Michael had written, "You're my happiness." Not to me, but to Rhea. He had written the same lines he once said to me. Watching him read that was like watching a mirror break. The judge listened quietly. The law doesn't care about poetic justice. It cares about fairness. Under cross-examination, Michael's answers became smaller. He tried to say the transfers were business expenses, but the receipts showed dinners and flowers. He tried to say the meetings were professional, but locations and photos told a different story. When the judge finally spoke, his voice was steady. "Mr. Michael, marriage is entered into with trust. Where trust is broken, the court must ensure fair restitution." He ordered alimony, a fair split of assets, and coverage for my lawyer fees. More importantly, he recognized the emotional distress caused by deliberate deceit. That phrasing mattered. It validated more than money. It recognized the harm. Michael left the courtroom pale and defeated. Rhea clung to him for a moment, then disappeared into the corridor. For the first time since I'd learned the truth, I felt something like relief. Not joy, not triumph, a quiet, clean relief. Justice had been measured, not shouted. But justice in a courtroom isn't the end of every story. It was a beginning. Outside the courthouse, the world moved as it always does. People hurried by, faces purposeful and unaware. I walked through them carrying the same weight I had before, but different. The burden of being wronged had changed into the responsibility of rebuilding. I didn't gloat. I didn't publicly humiliate him. I didn't need to. The law had spoken. The papers had told the truth. My dignity was restored by what I did, quietly, patiently, and with purpose. As for Michael, the consequences extended beyond the courtroom. The same friends who had once admired his charm started asking questions. The investors who had trusted him pulled back. Rumors spread, not viciously, but surely. Trust, once lost, turned into distance. That distance cost him more than I ever could have taken in court. That night, standing alone in my kitchen, I allowed myself a moment to breathe. I had been through a winter of pain. Now a different season was taken back, piece by piece. The Revenge of a Broken Rose, Part 3. The Rise and Silent Revenge. Winning in court gave me justice, but not closure. Justice is about rules and laws. Closure, that comes from the heart. And my heart wasn't done yet. Michael still had his business. He still had his network of investors and family connections, many of whom trusted him only because of me. I had built bridges with those people, hosted dinners, written thank you notes, remembered birthdays. They respected me as much as they respected him. And I wasn't going to let them believe his mask anymore. The quiet whispers. I didn't start with anger. I started with honesty. Over tea with an old family friend, I told the truth. Not dramatic, not loud, just facts. The betrayal, the court evidence, the way he had tried to cast me aside like I was disposable. The friend was stunned. "Rose, we thought you both were perfect." I smiled faintly. "That's what he wanted you to." Friend pulled back. Within days, that investor quietly withdrew from Michael's company. One by one, I had quiet conversations. Over coffee, at gatherings, through simple phone calls. I didn't beg anyone to take my side. I didn't smear his name in gossip. I just showed them the truth. Proof, if they asked. People don't invest in men who can't keep promises at home. Because broken trust is contagious. His empire began to wobble. The cracks in his kingdom. Michael was used to control, used to doors opening for him, people nodding, investors shaking his hand. But now, doors were closing, meetings canceled, calls unanswered. Smiles that once greeted him became polite but distant. His business needed reputation like lungs need air, and his reputation was now poisoned. I heard whispers that Rhea was growing restless. She had been drawn to the confident, successful Michael, not the man scrambling to patch up sinking deals. She wanted dinners at expensive restaurants, not stress-filled nights with unanswered calls and shrinking bank accounts. And soon enough, she left. A glimpse of karma. The last time I saw Michael, it wasn't planned. I was walking past a cafe, and there he was, sitting alone, thinner, older, staring at the ground like a man waiting for forgiveness that would never come. For a brief second, our eyes met. His lips parted, as if to speak, maybe to apologize, maybe to beg. I don't know. But I didn't stop. I didn't owe him that moment. I walked past like he was a stranger, 'cause by then, that's what he was. My new beginning. Revenge isn't just about taking something away from someone. It's about showing yourself what you can rebuild without them. I started small. I opened a boutique, a business I had dreamed of but never dared to try because I was always Michael's wife. Now, I was just Rose. Stronger, sharper, wiser. At first, it was hard. Starting over always is. But with every customer, every sale, every kind word from people who believed in me, I felt alive again. I surrounded myself with friends who truly cared. People who didn't see me as a shadow of a man, but as a woman who had survived betrayal and come out brighter. I laughed again, real laughter, not the polite chuckles I used to force when Michael told stories at parties. The sweetest revenge. Sometimes I think back to the nights I cried, thinking I would never recover. But here's the truth I learned. The sweetest revenge isn't watching them fall. It's rising without them. Michael lost everything. His marriage, his reputation, his business, his pride. He destroyed himself with his lies. And me? I found something better than revenge. I found Rose. Revenge of a Broken Rose, Part 4, The Lessons and the Rise of Rose. When people hear my story, they often ask the same question. Rose, do you regret it all? Do you regret marrying Michael? For a long time, I thought the answer was yes. I hated the memories, the love I wasted, the nights I cried into my pillow while he whispered lies into someone else's ear. But today, my answer is different. I don't regret it, because that pain carved out the woman I am now. Okay, lesson 1. Betrayal feels like the end of the world. When Michael looked me in the eyes and said he wanted a divorce, I thought my life was over. I thought I was broken beyond repair. The truth is, betrayal isn't the end. It's just the door to a new beginning. Pain burns, yes, but it clears the way for growth. Lesson 2. Never beg for love. I could have begged. I could have pleaded with him to stay, swallowed my pride, and accepted crumbs of his affection while he gave his heart to someone else. But love, real love, never needs begging. The moment you beg someone to choose you, you've already lost. So, I didn't beg. I stood tall. And in the end, I didn't just keep my dignity, I rebuilt a life that was mine alone. Lesson 3. Revenge is not always loud. Movies teach us that revenge is fire, shouting, breaking things. But real revenge? It's quiet. It's patient. It's letting truth do the work while you rise above the ashes. I didn't scream. I didn't fight in the streets. I simply showed the world who Michael truly was, and the world turned away from him. The sweetest revenge wasn't his downfall. It was my rise. Lesson 4. Find yourself again. When I married Michael, I became his wife. My dreams, my passions, my voice, They all shrank into the background while I poured myself into his world. Losing him forced me to find myself, to ask, who is Rose without Michael? The answer surprised me. I am strong. I am capable. I am more than someone's shadow. Today, when I open my boutique, when I see my name above the door, I smile. Because that's me, Rose. Not Michael's wife, just Rose. Final lesson, rise without them. To every woman listening to this, if you've been betrayed, if someone broke your heart and made you feel small, please hear me. Don't break. Don't beg. Don't let them define you. Stand tall. Fight back with dignity. And most of all, rise without them. Because sometimes the best revenge is not in what you take away from them. It's in how beautifully you rebuild yourself. Epilogue. Michael thought he destroyed me, but in truth, he destroyed himself. I thought he had stolen my future, but really, he gave me a gift, the chance to become stronger, wiser, freer. Today, I am not the broken woman crying in the dark. I am the woman who walked through fire and came out shining. My name is Rose, and I bloomed again. If this story touched your heart, hit like, share it with someone who needs strength today, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories. Your support keeps these stories alive.